Hey everyone, we are live today, just a minute early, so hopefully we're not too early for you guys. And I am here with a beautiful woman, and we both just realized a while ago we met each other probably like a year or so, maybe even more. So time for just flies, and we got to talk there, and so I'm happy to be reconnected with her. So I'd like to introduce you to Sheena Sharma, and she is a dating and love coach here in beautiful Austin, Texas. And she specializes in using spiritual techniques to help people live high vibe and in authenticity, and so that they can attract their most aligned romantic partner. She has been featured as a love and dating expert in Business Insider, Yahoo, and Bustle, and the Huffington Post. So we have an expert here, and I'm happy to have her share how she is supporting the women and men in your life. You work with both men and women,
Yes, that's correct.
and yeah, and just telling us a little bit more about what is driving this passion of yours. I think it's always interesting to know what why people are doing what they are doing, because it usually comes from a very personal experience and choice. So please share with us your wisdom and your expertise on us finding that love and that authentically aligned romantic partner.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you so much for having me on, Deanne. So just a little bit about my background. Growing up, I was raised by a single mother, and my parents divorced when I was very, very young. I was hardly 1 year old. So as I grew up without a stable father figure in my household. And I didn't even really get to know my father until I was in my late teens, about 17 or 18. And as I learned in my 20s, I'm now in my 30s, but as I learned in my 20s, not having a father figure around most of my life directly impacted the way that I showed up in my dating life with men. I had a lot of abandonment wounds. I had a lot of trauma that I needed to heal. And it was only until I could heal those wounds within myself that I realized just how much of a passion I had to do this in others, to help other people, not necessarily just from broken homes per se, but people who don't understand their attachment styles or who had particular types of relationships with their parents, and to help them find the connection between their relationship with their parents and how they show up in the dating world, because they are directly related.
Yes, yes, and I absolutely agree. And just like it wasn't until later on in my life that I actually realized the coincidence, I guess, in that, and the understanding of how our caregivers or lack of caregivers affects how we relate to the other people in our world, in our relationships. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So how else, I know you're also a yoga, certified yoga teacher. So how are you bringing like that work and the spirituality into your coaching?
Yes. So, as a yoga teacher, as a yogi, I very much believe in the power of yoga and meditation. The yoga is important, but the meditation is the most important thing. I always advise to my clients, or even just people who are interested in working with me, who are looking to date better in general, that you must be meditating. It must be in your daily routine, because meditation brings us back to our authentic selves.
Mm.
We spend so much of our lives out of the heart and in the ego space. And by that, I mean connecting with technology, connecting with the phones on computers, having calls like this throughout the day for work, watching TV, right? Watching porn, different types of media that affect the way that we think and show up in the world. But these things, they take us out of our heart center. And
Mm.
so through spiritual modalities like meditation, we're able to ground and connect back to our natural authentic self, like that inner child, right? That self
Mhm.
that was us when we came out of the womb, the us that was unaffected by technology and that's ego free. And by being that person and showing up as that person in the world, we will guaranteed, I've seen it happen. We will show up and attract the most aligned partner for us.
Yes, yes. It's like it's almost, when you're not wearing that mask, you you're attracting people who also aren't wearing a mask. When two
Yeah,
people are coming into a relationship wearing a mask and not being authentic, yes, it's still a growth experience, right? For them. However, it's most likely not your end all and be all. That real true relationship that our hearts are seeking.
exactly. Yeah. If you do that, there's always going to be some part of you that desires more. And that's why, in today's day and age, in my line of work, I do see a lot of people who are single and unhappy, or who are in relationships, but for whatever reason, they don't feel fulfilled in those relationships. And much of the time, that's because they're not necessarily showing up as their most heart centered self, right? So even things like following your heart in your work or your career are important. If you're not doing something that you love, you're going to be in a low vibration all day. And then you're going to come home and you're going to stay in that low vibration. And then you're going to attract a low vibrational partner, right? So being able to follow your heart in all aspects of your life will help you date better in turn.
Yeah. And it sounds that it's very empowering, especially for women, to really connect to their hearts and their to desires. So they're not looking outside themselves for that partner, that relationship to fill them up.
Yes, I'm so happy you said that because, growing up as women, we're told, we watch the Disney stories. There's the Disney princess trope, and we're told that if we do X, Y, and Z, we will be saved by some, white knight riding in on a horse, some perfect dream man. And that's just not true, right? We grow up and we realize life is a little more complicated than that. It's so important, especially as a woman. And I know, Deanne, you and I were talking about this before we hopped on, but it's so important to understand your own balance of masculine and feminine energy and the polarity of them and how they affect the way in which you show up in the world.
Mm.
If you are relying on a man or on a relationship for happiness, you're never actually going to feel fully happy and fulfilled. So the question becomes, as a woman, how can I follow my feminine energy and retain that feminine energy in such a masculine hustle world? That's what I've been seeing so much in my female clients. But also, how can I follow my masculine energy and manifest that energy into creation and manifestation and make things happen for myself financially, professionally, that feel really heart centered for me. So it's always this like constant balance.
Yes, and I think it's really a great topic to talk about. And if it seems the more we talk about it, it might finally sink in. Is finding that balance of the masculine and feminine energies within ourselves, and then seeing it comes in our excuse me, in our outer world.
Mhm.
And excuse me, wait, I love the when you said the masculines that creative. I mean, the feminine is creative also. Excuse me, let me just get some water.
Yeah, of course.
I like to think that masculine energy is like is the river banks that
Mm.
holds the feminine energy of flow. Because if we're totally always in our feminine energy, things aren't they're never going to get done. We're going to create a swamp, right? The water's just going to flow and everywhere, and there's like no structure. And having that masculine energy, and it's a healthy masculine energy, right? It's not that control and demanding and I got to do all the time. It's creating that structure that allows you to flow and be abundant and prosperous as you create and flow.
Yes, absolutely. I love that you said that because it's true that if you are super feminine, you may be, so much in your feels, right? So to speak, like just kind of super, super heart centered, but not necessarily having that structure. And that can feel messy and it can feel complicated. And I think, you know, that's why I always harp on women that as long as you're not seeking men or relationship from a place of need, right? Or of
Mm.
codependency or of unhealed trauma, like I need this person to be happy. and you're seeking them from a healthy place of desire, then the relationships, they are crucial. They are crucial to our happiness and fulfillment in life, because it is that balance that you can receive from an external masculine source, like, right?
Mm-hmm.
Feeling safe, feeling protected. If you're with the right person, understanding that as a woman, you can express your femininity and that it won't be judged, right? And that he'll hold a safe container for you to do that. There's a lot of power and value in that, especially again in a time where, women are working more than ever before, and we're doing great. We're kicking butt. But, a lot of women I talk to are maybe feeling a little bit burned out or frustrated or stressed because they're working so much, and they don't necessarily have an outlet per se to um, talk about and communicate those emotions in a safe container.
Mm. Yes, I love that. I love that. Oh, something came up and it left. It was so much. I'm like, oh yes, that and that. Let me go back. Yeah, so what came up for me, and you mentioned it, is the codependency and boundaries, right? Because I think boundaries also go with the codependency. So do you see a lot of that with your clients? Especially, I think more women. I just imagine because I'm a recovering, people pleaser, codependent person here. So I definitely can resonate and understand that living from that space and how unhealthy that can be in relationships.
Mhm. Yeah, I do see codependency in women, definitely. There's men and women can be people pleasers, but I feel it's typically feels more natural for a woman to be a people pleaser more so than a man. Again, because it's in our nature. Like, we're told to be soft, we're told to be passive, we're told to not say no too much or not to stand up for ourselves, otherwise we'll
Mhm.
be perceived a certain way, right? So all of these things that society tells us, they can very much turn us into a type of people pleaser person. And when that happens, there is some codependency or habits that can err towards codependent. And what I would say to women is to it always just comes back to meditation, sitting with yourself and asking yourself, what feels true and right to me?
Mm.
What feels true and right to me? There are women, and I see women who maybe end up in dating situations or situationships, I call them, that are not really a relationship quite yet, but they're a situationship, and they, for whatever reason, they don't feel like this person is valuing them. They feel undervalued, right? And so these are all signs of being people pleasy. And many
Mm.
times women don't have the confidence necessarily, or have been built and sustained that confidence to speak up for themselves and stand in their power. So as women, it's so important to do that. And all it takes is practice. The more that we can practice speaking what we feel that we deserve, the easier it becomes.
Yes. And I love you saying you really need to take that space for yourself to find out what it is that you want and you desire. And I see that in the women that I work with as well. It's, what really lights you up? What's your new story to tell yourself? What's not really nourishing you right now, supporting you right now? It might have a few years ago, but you need to check in. It's almost like you need to check in on a daily basis. It's like, really, what is true for me now? Where am I at right now and feeling and believing in? So yeah, and and do you see that in relationships of communication wise? When do you see when a woman can kind of come more into her empowerment, into her own desires and truth, that there's better communication in those relationships?
Yes, absolutely. I love what I did want to touch on, because I love what you said about checking in daily. It's like if you, especially if you are a growth minded person, what you desire, it's going to change. Or some of it may stay the same, but it might evolve and it might shift. And that's okay, honor that. And so, and that being said, in relationship, if we are the feminine, right? So I believe in many ways it's our not necessarily responsibility, but in many ways it's our superpower to lead to
Mm,
lead the man into his emotional space, right?
right.
um, and we can do so by doing it ourselves. So if we have a healthy relationship with boundaries, if we have a healthy relationship with how we express ourselves and our emotions, and can communicate directly, clearly, and well, and even communicate from a space of I feel,
Hmm.
I believe, versus you do this, you do that, right? Less
Right.
projection, less blaming him, more how do you feel? The easier it'll become for him to open up and reciprocate and give you back the emotions, right? Because men are not emotional. Like I hear this from women all the time. They absolutely are. Sometimes they just need a little nudge in how to communicate those emotions. So, in
Yeah.
many ways, the feminine woman, when she can lead by example and do it, she'll get that back, and it becomes a beautiful relationship.
Hmm. I that that just I got goosebumps. That feels just so right and natural. And I love that because we also, I think women, you said you have some women are like, oh, they're not emotional. Men aren't emotional. You know, I know, women, we've been, everything, right? We can go the whole suppressed, everything, the whole thing that's the patriarchy. And yes, 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 that all happened. And men are also affected by that as well. A lot of men were taught not to express emotion. So what do we expect? So yes, it's like we need to nurture each other. And I love the what you mentioned is the ownership of this is how I'm feeling. I'm owning this, and and asking for what you need from your partner from this. And that's how we grow. I love the image of you know partners walking like side by side to each other, because I look at that as like it's a complementary, they're walking side by side, as opposed to some those couples that you see where either the man's in front or the woman's in front. Like we should be walking side by side together and teaching each other and learning from each other and supporting each other, not leading and leaving somebody behind, or watching someone go in front of you because you can't keep up.
Yes, exactly. I love that. That's such a beautiful image, and it's not a competition, and we see that today, like you said, with the patriarchy. There's so much going on in the social context, but you do see maybe in your line of work as well. But in my line of work, I see so much divisiveness. I see men and women wanting to hate on each other. I hear them
Mm.
blaming each other. You guys do this. No, you guys do this. You're the problem. No one is the problem. We both have work to do and we can both grow together. And it's about coming together and having these conversations that may be a little more difficult to have, but then understanding how do we navigate these nuances, these things that are happening in our culture right now, so that we can come together, because we need each other. We cannot do life without each other. We need each other.
Yes, yes. And think about, and thinking about the next generation coming into couples, into their, the babies. Like, can you imagine babies coming into a relationship with their parents, their caregivers, that is really based on true authenticity and communication and respect and support. Like, it almost seems like almost an impossible dream, but it is attainable. And those beautiful children will grow up in this atmosphere, and they'll know how to have healthy relationships. They won't be spending 30 years of their lives in therapy and that, just trying to find their own way and releasing what their parents decided to gift them with. And it's like, I feel that that's, it's almost our job right now, almost like a different kind of parenting style in a way that the couples really got to really start doing their work together so these next generations can understand what living in a healthy relationship is like.
Yes, absolutely. I completely agree. And you're so wise in what you're saying. It's not just about us. It's
Mhm.
about the longevity and the health of the future generations. And if we want to have children and we want to see that the world continuing in a way that's positive and impactful, then we need to be having and setting the foundation for healthy relationships ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, which is evident so much just recently, just like a lot of hurt souls that were suffering, and now more people are suffering because of that. Like where can we as a society help, that next generation flourish and live live in peace, I guess.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes, I
So
get chills. I get goosebumps.
so it's not like it's not a selfish thing to want, a healthy relationship. And it's, if I guess if feeling selfish is something that people struggle with, like think about, you're doing this for the next generation. You're doing it for something outside of yourself that helps you, get the coaching and the guidance that you need to find that healthy relationship for yourself, and attract that person.
Yeah, absolutely. It can be selfish, but you're right. I think at large it is selfless. Relationships are selfless because in relationship and healthy relationship, we are happier and more fulfilled. And then in the interactions we have, we're spreading that light and that love and that joy. And we just make for a happier world.
Yes, yes. And I think you're starting to see it more now that there are more healthier, like I think people are coming in to relationships, and let me know if I'm wrong, but I mean, of course you want the longevity, but I kind of, my understanding now and on my personal experience too is, relationships are a huge growing point for both people, both souls, right? And when it's coming from this conscious place, and all the things that we've been talking about, it's when there could be a time where, all right, we're really not choosing each other anymore because it's kind of, it's reached its point, and it's okay. There's not that animosity, and of course there might be grief and hurt and pain in the heart, right? However, it's, that term unconscious coupling, really, it's like there is, you can break apart and still have that connection and go on to other relationships and love, because now you evolved to a different plateau, and now you each can go out, and it's almost like you just keep spreading that love out there, what you've learned in your wisdom.
Mhm. Yeah, so it's like you share the knowledge, right? I think people can be so fearful of breakups, or people can be fearful of entering relationships in general because they're afraid of loss or potential loss that might come from it. But I think we have to remember that we learn something from each and every relationship. And I also like to think of it as like climbing a ladder. If you enter a relationship and then break up and then you enter another one, that one is always going to be even more aligned with your highest self, right? Your highest good. So we always get closer and closer to what it is that we seek and desire. Each enter a new relationship, and so it's learning. You're up leveling each and every time, and that's a beautiful thing. It's just part of the growth process.
Yeah, absolutely, yes. Relationships are definitely a gift.
Oh yes,
The gift that keeps giving.
yes.
Oh yeah, I mean, we could all be monks and live in a cave and seek enlightenment, but if you really truly want to grow, you get into a relationship.
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes, right? A relationship is the place where you'll grow the most. Person is your mirror, and you'll
Hmm.
start to see all the little places within yourself that you still need to work on. And it's scary, but it's also incredibly liberating.
Yes, yeah, especially when you're able to support each other going through that, and
Yeah,
and you recognize, and
absolutely.
and that beautiful one of the four agreements there is like, don't take things personally, right?
Yes. Yes. I love that. I love that book. That's a
Yes,
great book. Everyone read it, guys. It's called The Four Agreements.
yes, definitely one of the gospels of life that we should be given when we come in.
Absolutely. Yes.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Sheena, for taking this time and chatting with me. I loved this conversation. It is so interesting and vital, the work that you're doing with men and women in just working through those triggers, those blocks, those shadows, whatever that is. And I love that meditation that you teach them is, that is so vital to find out what is it that you really want, because you can't go into a relationship not knowing what you want, because it's kind of like manifestation. If you're not clear with the universe about where you want to go, it's just going to drop a bunch of stuff on you, and you're like, I don't know, and you get a big mess. And so being more clear and having again, bringing the masculine in with the feminine, and it's all connected to really create this beautiful balance in this life that we get to live here. So
Yeah.
um, thank you again, and I will put down in the comments your contact information, links to your websites and things like that. So thank you again for the beautiful work you're doing, and definitely be keeping in touch with you.
Thank you, Deanne. I loved our conversation. I love the work you're doing. You're an amazing leader. Thank you so much.
Thank you, love. All right, I'll talk soon. Okay.
Okay, bye.
Bye.